So hi everybody, this is Jason Everett from Business Refuel, and I am joined, as you can tell today, by Sarah Singer-Nourie. I'm so glad to have you on, Sarah. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Awesome. And as some of you guys might know, Sarah has a new book out. It's right actually behind her. It says Tap Into Greatness. We're going to be talking a little bit about that today. And for those of you that don't know Sarah and you're like, hey, who is this Sarah person? I just want to tell you that I met Sarah a couple years ago, but I'd been hearing about her from for a long time from a friend of mine, Blair Singer, and Sarah is Blair's sister. But Sarah, as you know this, I've heard about you a ton.
Right.
And like Blair always told us.
By the way.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good, right?
Yeah, good things.
So Blair had told me about this crazy sister of his, and I say crazy lovingly, right? He said this sister of mine that has done all these great things, and a lot of the techniques and things I've learned from Blair, he really credits to a lot of the things that the two of you have done together. And so kind of the quick background I want to tell people that are watching the video is that for you, I know that you came from like an education background where you went to traditional education and you had learned all this stuff about super teaching and I think it's quantum teaching too, right? And all of these different techniques. And so you went into like one of the worst areas like inner city youth and said, I want to go in and take these advanced learning techniques, take them into our regular school system because you knew it would work and you did some great things inside the school system, correct?
Yeah.
Awesome. So then after having some great success there's some challenges because as most people who watch my stuff know, that traditional education can have its own problems. And so as you started teaching in the traditional education system and having some great success and having some huge turnarounds, that the school system said, started having some issues with just, a different way of teaching, but they also started having you start to do training of other teachers and helping other people. Can you tell me a little bit about that just to kind of frame that up a little bit? Because I'd love for people to know kind of what happened there.
Sure. So I kind of came into it with an agenda, right? I came into it with an agenda of I am going to do it a different way because I've been exposed to a different way that I know works. I was one of those kids who hated school myself, right? Until I found out that there was another way to learn. There was another way to translate the information in a way that I could get excited about it. I could learn it quickly. I could do it in my own style. And so I wanted to bring that to the kids who would never otherwise get it. So I came in with that agenda to change the system, and I kind of did, right? So
no big task. I'm going to just change the entire system. I'm going to single-handedly, change education. But that's a big project. But that's who you are, right? I mean, that's what I love about how you work.
Who I am, exactly, right. So to me, like if I don't have a cause to stand behind as I'm doing it, it's hard to get motivated, right? Now I find causes easily, and to me, this is one of the most important causes there is the education of our youth, right? So I have a particular soft spot for teenagers and high school age specifically. So I went to one of the toughest neighborhoods in South Side of Chicago, in a school where the teachers had been teaching the same way for a long time. The population had definitely changed, very gang infested, very tough neighborhood, but the administration was open to a different way of doing it. So I did it a different way, and we got results, was the long story made short. And yeah, the more I started getting results, the more I started to realize that with teaching one teacher differently, how many more kids could I reach? So my favorite thing to do is to teach teenagers. But at the same time, if I could teach teachers a whole different way, then we could start to really change the system. So I started to be out of my classroom more than I was in my classroom, started to do teacher trainings. Teacher trainings led to system-wide training. System-wide trainings led to people outside of education going, we could use this information too. So people in the corporate world who are leading, who are training, who are teaching other people, and so it became. So here I am now.
I was going to say, and that's kind of how we got plugged in, right? Is going to business trainings and doing these events. And, a lot of people tell me that I have a lot of energy when I speak and when I train. And I'm like, well, you need to meet Sarah because she's on the level too, right? Is that it really, teaching and education is really about more than just memorizing information. And I know that's kind of like a basic thing to say to you, obviously. But for people that are watching, like I really want them to understand that if you've been to a training that gets your attention and that captures you emotionally and it like locks into your memory, that's a large part of what you do, not only for business, but also for the youth. And I just firmly believe too, if you can win the youth, you win the future. Whether that's in business and in life and just everything you can do. So first of all, I know that I was just really good to hear your story and kind of know a little bit more about your background. But I want to talk about your book because I just love the title, tap into greatness, the stories I've heard about you, about just how you see, that inner city youth and like say, man, what makes them great is awesome. So tell me about the book. I'd like to know,
book.
How did you go from like all these great things to going, I got to pop it in a book, and what is the intention of the book, if we can start there?
So there's a progression, right? So you talked about quantum teaching and about the teaching the kind of approach to teaching that I brought. So my first book was a co-authored project called Quantum Teaching, which was basically what was it that I was doing in that classroom and that amazing teachers are doing all over the planet that really does it a whole different way, and a manual for how to do that. So that was the first project 10 years ago now, and it's actually having a resurgence now. My second project was a chapter in the book called Disrupt Together, which is about how do you lead a team of disruptors in a way that taps into their thinking, that makes it worth it, and that instigates them to create great things, right?
Awesome.
Now, in the background of all that, right, with both of those things and in all the coaching work that I've been doing for the last 15 to 20 years, have been some underpinnings of really concrete tenets, right? Lessons that I teach over and over and over, principles that apply whether you're teaching in a classroom or you're the CEO of a startup or you are a member of a team that just wants to take it up a notch to the next level. And all of that is what is in this new book.
Awesome.
So it is a collection of the core of what I teach across the board and has been tested and tested and tested with leaders. So when we think about what it is that makes people great, and we think of other people who are able to find it, tap into it, literally pull it out of other people and make space for it to multiply, it's a very, in the past, we've always thought that, you either have that talent to be able to spot that in people and bring it out, or you don't. And actually, I'm here, what this book is all about is actually it's learnable. It's not like you're either born with it or you don't. There are very specific ways to do that, and part of it has to do with tapping into a certain part of your own greatness and which version of yourself you choose to show up as every day as you're working with people and influencing them all the time.
That's awesome. And I think a lot of people ask that question, like, are great leaders born or are they made? Or, do you just have it or you don't? And I think a lot of people see people and they go, man, I don't know that I could do that because that's not, I don't like speaking on stage, or I don't really like educating, or like maybe I just need to hire somebody to come in and do the work. So what do you think is kind of the missing link as far as like, for people to kind of tap into their own greatness? Like what is it that stops them from being great in the first place? Like, do you have something on that?
Yeah, I do. I have a whole book about that.
I know. So you're like, get the book and then you'll figure it out. Yeah. So
there are a few things. So one of the major premises that kind of is a thread throughout this whole book, which I just mentioned a second ago, is this whole thing of how you're showing up, right? So I think that we all have default settings, right? So who I am being, so to speak, in my next conversation with my team or with my spouse or with my kid or with a client or whatever the case may be, how intentional am I being about it? And when I say being, I mean I can be a cheerleader. I can be an inspirer. I can be a taskmaster. I can be, let's move to adjectives. I can be irritable. I can be fun. There are a lot of different things I can be. And I think so often we don't even think about who we're being. We just kind of get on a roll, right?
On autopilot.
We're on autopilot and we have default settings. And honestly, who I might end up being in that next conversation might be left over from 3 conversations ago, right? And who I needed to be in that conversation, but I haven't actually just intentionally switched gears yet. So I think we have a lot more options than we think we do in terms of what kind of impact we're having moment to moment. I just actually was tweeting about this yesterday. I think influence is often misunderstood. I think it can go 2 different ways. I think one way is people think they have no influence at all and that what they're doing doesn't really get on anybody else, which is completely untrue. Or people think that they have a lot better influence than they do, right? So they think that they're doing great things, but when in fact all their little personality quirks that we think people don't notice get all over everybody all the time, right? So I think what this book does is it enables people to get really clear, really deliberate, really thoughtful, and really conscious about the impact that they're having all the time, which we all are.
Yeah, and I think so many people, right, like don't necessarily take a look at that impact of what they're doing. I mean, I always tell people, like, you know, you are a reflection of your business is a reflection of you, right? Yeah. And it's like your kids are a reflection of you and everything else, but so many people are not conscious. And it's like, when I work with people on a regular basis, and if they're watching this video, like they know a lot about that, is that, you know, for people to really kind of understand what they're about, they've got to look inward. And I love that you take that approach of like, well, let's look at what you can do to become great on your own so you can help see the greatness in others and bring it out of them. It's like you can't help somebody out if you're down in the hole with them, right?
That's right. Exactly. And when we think about greatness, we think about people who are famous. We think about great athletes and things like that, right? We're in the middle of basketball season, right? So I happen to live in Ohio, just saying. So we think of a LeBron James, right? Let's just say. And like, so who is it that he's being? Now, would LeBron James ever just step onto the court, like just walk from the street right onto the court and not do any kind of mental adjustment first? Of course not, right? And so my whole thing is who actually has more at stake in the matter of changing people's lives? Who LeBron James is in a basketball game, or you or me, right? As we're touching people's lives every day. So, you know, what if we took that kind of care or that kind of deliberate intentionality to choose who we're being? So we can be great. We all have great moments, right? But to me, it's about how do you get those orchestrated in such a way that you can be great on demand and that you can actually pull out greatness from other people on demand.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I love that. I love that idea of just being great on demand. And also too, I think that's, you know, we live in a culture that celebrates celebrity, right? It's like that's just becoming like the new most looked at career for kids is to be a celebrity. And I think I really love what you said about, you know, a celebrity doesn't necessarily have as much influence as the teachers in school and all those things, because I think there's a lie being told in society that the celebrity is the one who has the influence. Like the Kardashians have more influence over your life than your parents do, or something like that. And I just love what you said about like, well, what if we took that responsibility on and just said, what influence can we have around the people that we interact with in our lives, whether it's like for us who do these kind of things on stage and, you know, do bigger things, but even for people who just, you know, they have a business and they've got 5 employees or things like that. Now, I didn't mention, because you've worked with some pretty big clients. Do you mind if I like name drop a couple of your big, or have you name drop some of your big clients? Because I know the big ones like Victoria's Secret, I think Bubba Gump Shrimp. Haven't you done some work with them? Yeah,
definitely. I trained. One time I trained all of the managers, assistant managers, chefs, sous chefs of Bubba Gump Shrimp Company, American Eagle Outfitters. Victoria's Secret stores, limited stores, lately Ulta Beauty. So that's my latest really fun client, Target Corporation. I mean, so we know a lot of these names, but it's amazing because so many of those are so very different from one another. But to me, I love working with them as much as I love working with literally the mom and pop shop startup down the street, because they're all doing the same work. And I just stood up in front of, it was pretty fun, like in front of 1,500 people the other day at Ulta Beauty and said, you know what? You and I, we're in the same work, which we are, which is about influencing people, right? Which is about making a difference in people's lives, right? We all have a different vehicle to do it with, but I think it's all the same thing. So, you know, one of the things that, to me, the subtitle of this book, How to Stop Managing, Start Leading, and Drive Bigger Impact. It's interesting, that managing word. I just want to touch on that really quick, if I could.
Please.
So there are a lot of people who are in management roles, right? That's their title. They got promoted to be a manager. And so it was a big debate as I was getting close to the subtitle of this book, like, can I just say that? Stop managing. Like, well, what do you mean? That's like, what I do.
That's going to freak everyone out as soon as you say that.
And so to me, there's a big difference in language that elevates what we do, right? So to me, managing is like lowest common denominator. Like, gee, you're carrying a lot of groceries. Can you manage it, right? Or maybe he should manage his temper better. Like, to me, managing is about like keeping it on the rails.
Like
it's not
handling
it.
Yeah.
It's just handling it.
Like in the boundaries.
That's right. And so to me, I start off this book with the assumption and with the declaration of, look, I get that you're already managing. This is not about that. This is not a management book. This is about kicking up the whole conversation to another level, which is about, okay, now that you're managing stuff, it's on the rails, not falling apart, what kind of impact are you having? right? So instead of just talking about like what result am I going to hit, let's talk about the ripple effect of the impact of that result and getting intentional about that.
That's
then
awesome.
we get who you're being to cause it, and we get that lined up. Then we get the state that you're in, and we get that lined up. Then we start talking about learning styles and how people communicate. I mean, there are all these different nuanced things that when we look at people who are the big influencers, the ones who drive huge impact, it seems like it's just so natural. But when we break it down, it's pieces that we can learn, we can practice, and we can fold into the way that we lead.
So you're saying by understanding how to break it down, how to practice it, and how to use it in your own life, you can become just as impactful as a leader of all these people who do it at a monster level. But from an individual, if you got 1 employee, 20 employees, whatever, or if you're just in a management position, to your point, and saying I got to manage my own time or just managing my own family, like from all the way to the top, all the way to the bottom. People need to understand more about it. So let me ask you this. I don't like recommending books just to recommend a book. Does that make sense? Because like everybody writes a book.
You shouldn't, by the way.
And I always tell people, I go, look, my job as a coach is to help you find like just the one chapter in the one book that you need to know right now. So what I want to ask you, and this I didn't tell you this in advance, so this is a trick question here. But what I want to know is what would be the trigger point for somebody in their life that they should be prompted to read this book? Like they just had this happen at work and like this, your book would be a good solution for that. Like what would be a point that they just experienced something or they've been fighting with this for years and like this book is a good way to handle that. Does that make sense?
It does. Wow, I thought you were going to make me pick my favorite chapter, which I was not going to be able to do.
No. I just want to know, like, where would somebody be at that they're like, man, Tapping Into Greatness is the right book? And I'm sure it's for everybody at all times, but like, what's the moment that they would really
here I got it. So here's what it is. So I think all of us have had the experience of having awesome moments, right? So like in that one moment when it seemed like all the planets were aligned, and oh, by the way, that one person didn't show up to work that day, right? And like I was on it, and I was caffeinated, and I was feeling good, and blah, 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 blah. I had a moment of awesomeness, of greatness, right? So to me, if you had a moment of it, then you've got it in you, right? But if you've had that realization lately of like, why is it that I can be so on and so getting it, so lighting people up in a great way one moment, and then the next moment totally flat, right? Or why do I try something one time with somebody and then I try it again with somebody else and it doesn't work? So that inconsistency that I think we've all felt, if you have frustration about that, which I think, to me, that's the biggest trigger. If you want to get more consistent, right? If you want to not just have moments of greatness, but be great, as we said earlier, on demand, there's a way to do that, right? And it's totally possible, by the way. And one thing I just also want to add in is, I mentioned like this kind of myth, either you're born with it or you're not. By the way, I do think people are born with it, right? So I don't want to discount that, because I think that, and there's a whole chapter about that in the book, about talent and what does that really mean. And so when somebody shows up brilliant, they never had to learn it. They just do it automatically. We look at that and go, oh, we hold it up as a standard, and like we all should be like that. And so you're never gonna be like that if it's not in you as your instinct. But you can learn how to be like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so there's people who kind of are born that way and just naturally get there. And then for other people, probably like the rest of us, right, that may not come with that full talent, there's still a lot of things that we can do to get to that level.
That's right.
That's awesome. I totally love it. And I know I asked you if you were willing to give something away, because I know people, if they're watching this video and they hung out with us for, the 20 minutes and watched this whole thing, like I want to make sure that they get something great from you. So first of all, can you give me, what's a website they can go on? First of all, give me, what's the website that they can contact you on?
Yes.
Like, what is that?
Sarah Singer and Co.
Sarah Singer and
Sarah
Co.
Singer and Company.
With the ampersand, like the actual and.
There's just A-N-D-C.
Oh, and. Okay, I just want to make sure. So we'll put that on there. So we'll put that on our link in description so they can get a hold of you that way. How can they order the book? I imagine it's all over the place and in stores and things like that. But what's the best way? Do you have a preference or a way that they can find it?
Yeah, they should go to that website, and they will see hashtag Tap Into Greatness right at the top of the page. Cool. And they can click on there. You can order from Barnes & Noble, from Amazon.com. It'll take you right where you need to go, and it'll be in bookshelves. It stores just everywhere on the 26th, which is great.
Awesome. Yeah, so May 26th is coming out, and again, can people order it like online or they can order it in advance from your website, or like what can they do right now so they get it?
Please do. So if you go to that website, there are 2 buttons. You can choose how you want to order it. And if you do that now, there's actually a great promotion happening right now. It's discounted a little bit for pre-release sales. The ebook is on there too if you like that format better.
Yeah, sometimes people want that.
So people are jumping on that and buying them for entire teams, because that's another thing I think is a really great idea, is to get everybody using the same language, right?
Yeah,
so I've been working with just awesome leadership teams who are all taking it together. They're taking the tools, they're going through it together, go, okay, this week we're all going to focus on who we're being, for example, that idea,
so,
right?
But they're all on the same concept. They're all on the same page, literally in the book, right? They're
literally, exactly. Yep.
Very cool. Okay, so there's a bonus for people who watch this video and like hang out with us, right? And like got to watch this whole thing. And I got the bonus of meeting you and all these cool things. But you put together a tool that people can get access to, right?
That's right.
And I just want to read what the tool was. It says it's the 3 unconscious traps that are robbing you of greatness. Thank you so much for doing that. So for people that watch this video, if you want to figure out what are the 3 unconscious traps that are robbing you of greatness, there's a link in the video section below where you can click and you can actually get that directly from Sarah. So even if you don't want to buy the book just yet and you want to get some more info, check that out. I'm sure it's an amazing tool. I haven't had a chance to see it yet, but I'm sure it's awesome. And again, they can check out the book. They can do all those things on your website. And Sarah, I just want to say, you're a fun person anyway. You're even more fun on video like this. So thank you for being willing to do this and just share it with people. If you could leave people that are in my space that are around me from a standpoint, like if you could leave them with one thought that maybe kind of like festers and burns in their mind about who they are and who you would want them to be if you never saw them again, what would you want them to know after meeting you for just a few minutes here? I know, big questions, right?
Yeah.
I only ask the difficult ones.
No, that's great. I think to underscore a few things that we've talked about, and to me is, the 3 things that you're going to get in that download is going to give you some really beefy stuff. But I think the biggest thing, even with that, is that we have options. You have a choice every single moment. Every moment that you are interacting with anyone, anywhere, you are influencing them. Whether you are thinking about it, you're trying to, or you're not. And by the way, maybe that's even more important. Even when you're not, especially when you're not intending to, you are. You're getting all over them all the time. And the bigger your position is, right, as a leader, as a manager, as whatever your title is, or in hierarchy compared to other people, the bigger that influence is, right? So Bucky Fuller talks about throwing a stone into water and the idea of precession, that ripples come out. And impact happens at a 90-degree angle from where we're intending, right? And we never even see it. The thing is, the more of a leader you become, the more people you're influencing, the bigger of a rock you become, right? So those ripples get bigger and bigger.
So we gotta start thinking about or not intentional, right?
That's right. Right.
That's awesome.
So you've got options. Get intentional. Get choiceful. Be great. It's a choice.
Well said, Sarah. It's been my absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you guys so much. Again, guys, don't forget to click on the link below and get the freebie from Sarah and go on her website. And again, it's Sarah Singer & Co., right? .com. And thank you so much for being on today, Sarah.
Thank you so much. An honor.
Awesome.